All right, hello and welcome back right here. Okay, so in this video, I want to address failure. Failure, or the fear of failure, is really a tremendous fear. And I want to tell you why it's a tremendous fear, and then we'll debunk it because it's totally garbage. The fear of failure is is so powerful over people because when they think I'm a failure, they're immediately totally covered in and surrounded by shame because they themselves as a person are now less than because they committed to something and then they proved themselves to be less than and unworthy, and everyone around them should be looking at them with scorn. And how could I possibly continue on when I've been revealed for this shameful person? That is why failure is so powerful. So, first, I want to address the shame in there, and we're going to come back to beliefs on failure to continue. Okay. And I was recently talking with a believer, relatively new believer here in Oahu. And he's like, well, I thought shame was good because it's like humble and that, you know, you need God and you're less than and you're really, it's like, no, I don't have any verses, but I know there are verses where it says our shame is removed from us when we accept the blood of Christ. Why? Because he lived perfectly and died in our place. And when God looks at us, it is through the perfect blood of Christ. So he doesn't see Brett with all of my shortcomings and foibles and annoying ticks and habits and like all of the things that I shouldn't do. He doesn't see that person. He sees a different Brett than I am right now. He sees the the future most perfectly Christ-like version of Brett that I will be in heaven. My goal is to get there in this earth, but of course we can never get that perfect. So, I want to be the best I can, but even with the mistakes I make, he sees me through the blood of Christ and sees me in my most perfect, purified version. He does not see shame in me or on me. Christ took that away. So shame is a lie. And anytime you start feeling, this is what I teach my son. Anytime you start feeling like you should hide, I literally see my son hide. He does something and then he goes and he hides because he's afraid that I'll see him for who he really is. And so we've talked about this. No, no, no. What did Adam and Eve do in the garden? They hid behind the leaves, right? That's the picture. Yeah. Don't hide. When you feel like you're hiding, it's shame. It's a lie. Get rid of it. Call it out for what it is and reject it. What did that passage say we just looked at a little while ago? It's Jesus scorned the shame of the cross. He looked at the shame that the cross should have brought onto him, and he said, no way. Okay. So it makes us want to hide. It makes us feel bad as a person. It's one thing to make a mistake and feel guilty about our choice. It is a totally different thing to feel guilty as a person, to feel bad as a person. And that is garbage. That's a lie. So shame is a lie. Now, let's go backwards and let's talk about our belief about failure. Okay, so failure triggers shame, and you got to get rid of shame. That will destroy your life if you let that build up. And I won't even get into how true that is, but we're going to move on. When we go to school, we are taught that we should not fail. We don't fail the quiz questions. We don't fail the class discussions, the class participation. There's all of these fail, fail, fail. And what's the goal is to have a good grade, because what does it do? When you think fail, it's I'm a failure. And that's immediately what happens. Okay. Now, let me just say this. If you think that coming up short makes you a failure, that's a lie. And the fear is we're going to invest ourselves into a thing wholeheartedly, and then it won't work and we'll fail. Well, what happens then? Well, it would be so painful. I would invest myself into this relationship with this person. And I do think there's probably some healthy degree to hold back until you're married and there's commitment and all this stuff. But it's like, okay, I'm investing myself into the marriage 100%. Well, I can't do that because what happens if they don't invest it? And then, they leave and there's a 50% divorce rate. And then I'm heartbroken. And then what? I wouldn't be able to go on. Okay, well, right there, that's our insanity lesson. You would be able to go on. It would be terribly difficult. And you would heal over time. You would grieve and you would heal, and you would move forward. You would be able to respond. That is the reality. And it would be a punch right in your face. Okay. So you would be able to move on. So The worst case scenario is it would be really hard and you'd be okay. How do you know? Because life is hard and I'm still here and I've been through hard stuff so far. Okay, but with the failure, well, then I would be shameful and all this other stuff. Good. Shame's, I'd say shame's a lie, but if other people want to think I'm shameful, like go for it. You can think whatever you want. Okay, so we're making our peace with all of these things that come out of this. Well, I would fail. Okay, here's the reality of failure, and this is the true belief. Failure is not making a mistake. Failure is not falling down. Failure is the unwillingness or inability to, not inability, the unwillingness to get back up. Failure, you fail when you quit. Now, this isn't to belittle circumstances. This isn't to say that I think I am the person with the level of training who could get up under every circumstance. No, if anything, it's the opposite. I know I'm not strong enough to get up in every circumstance. And so it's like when those really hard circumstances come in, boy, I hope I trained and I can fall to a level of training that's functional in that circumstance. And probably that's not going to happen. And I'm going to need God to pull me through because I know I'm weak. Okay, so this isn't to belittle anybody. However, when we fail, when we quit, and this seems to be a biblical definition of failure as well. Okay, why? Well, and I actually don't have this pulled up. Finish. I'm going to get the verse for you. Finish the race. You finish the race and get the crown of life. What is this? James 1:12 states. Okay, I'll pull it up. James, I'm already in James 1:9-12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, having stood the test. This is, by the way, right after it says, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, the person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. That's powerful. What's the crown of life? I want to specify that. That is called the victor's crown. That is a laurel wreath crown. There are two crowns in the Bible. The laurel wreath crown is like what you see, the little leaves going around the sides that you see in like the Roman, on the Roman statues, and especially in the Olympics. They win, they get the crown. Okay. That is a victor's crown. It says you've had victory. The other crown is a diadem, which is a king's crown, the big giant gold crown that you think of for kings. That in the Bible symbolizes authority and power. So depending on the type of crown it's talking about, will tell you if that person is victorious or if they're powerful. Well, in this case, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial. You're under trial, and if you're not, you will be. I will be under trial if I'm not right now. And because having stood the test, they made it through the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. How do you get the crown of life? How do you get the victor's crown when you get to heaven? You don't give up. You can get beaten down. Maybe you get killed for your faith, and that's how you show up in heaven. The thing is, you get through with the faith. And what does that mean? That means, shifting back over here. Where'd my notes go? That means never accepting, never quitting. And so biblically then, failure is when you quit. Failure is when you throw your hands up and you say, this Christian thing's too hard. Or by extension, this thing that God told me to do, it's too hard. God was wrong. And I really can't do this. Like, that's kind of what we're saying when we say, no, this is too hard. And do I think we still go to heaven if we quit the thing God's called us to, that we know in our heart that's the thing, because it's too hard, we're afraid to fail. Maybe we've already failed a bunch of times because we messed up. We feel so shameful because we're not good enough, all this stuff. Do I think we don't go to heaven? No, of course you go to heaven. If you give up on your faith, then that's a different thing. But do you go to heaven if you mess up and you give up, like, on the calling that God has? Sure you do. But it's definitely not living to your potential. And I want you to live to your potential. I'm trying to live to mine. It's super hard. What is failure is when you quit. Okay. So let's go backwards a little bit more. When you fall off the bike, that's not failure. If you have a child, if you've seen a child, what parent ever told their child, you had better get on this bike the very first time, and if you fall off, you're a failure and I'm throwing it in the dumpster? That would be the worst parent ever. Don't do that. That should never happen. What happens? You get on the bike, the kid's going to fall down. They're going to scuff up their knee. And they're going to cry and they're going to freak out. Why? Because people panic, right? They're going to do exactly what I'm telling you. Don't panic. They're going to panic because they're a kid. That's what they do. And you're going to have to, what are you going to do? You're going to give them a pep talk. Hey, look, it's okay. Let's get a Band-Aid. Now go get out there and do it again. Do it again, do it again, do it again. And you push them as much as they can be pushed, right? There are limits. And sooner or later, they get on that bike and they learn how to ride. That's exactly what God does with you and what God does with me. That's why he sent Christ, because we're the child on the bike. You're going to fall down. You're going to scuff up your knee. You're not going to get it right. You're going to fail. The goal is to learn how to ride the bike. That's the thing that God's calling you to do. And it's going to hurt getting there, but once you get there, it's going to be the greatest thing. It's going to give you the freedom to be who God has called you to be. But it doesn't come easy, and you have to be okay with that. And you're not a failure for falling off the bike. You fail when you quit and you say, forget it. It's not worth it to ride that bike. Okay? So this is understanding the definition of failure. It's a new definition of failure, and you have got to burn that into your heart. I only fail if I quit. It doesn't matter if you get through ugly. It doesn't matter if you get through doing it looking good. If you're just barely, just the skin of your teeth, pulling yourself over the finish line, as long as you get to the finish line, you're a winner. Doesn't matter what it looks like, okay? So in this video, we talked about what does failure actually mean. In the next video, we're going to talk about healthy versus toxic stress. And we're going to talk about that because we're talking about pushing ourselves. We're talking about doing really hard things. And I'm going to go in there and say there are some limitations. And we've got to be aware of that. So in the next video, we'll talk about healthy stress versus toxic stress. I'll see you there.